What up, Empty Void? It's me again, your boy, here to talk to you about Young Justice Season 3 and the first 3 episodes that they've come out with so far. You know, initially I was kind of concerned that I was going to be fanboying too hard over the property and wasn't going to be able to create a decent, fair video, because unlike Aquaman, Young Justice has been, pretty near and dear to my heart with the other 2 seasons, and I didn't think I was going to be able to give a fair and just realistic opinion of the episode. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's going to be a problem because the episodes were only okay. I mean, they were good, and they were certainly worth watching and everything, but they weren't the experience that I thought they were going to be going into this. I really thought this was going to be the perfect way for the show to be run and the perfect season for it, and it didn't really turn out being that, or at least it's not yet. Still time, of course. They've got another 21 episodes to figure things out. I'm sure they'll do just fine. Now, a big question that I had, and I'm sure a lot of people had, was the loss of Cartoon Network and what that was going to mean for the series in terms of tone and what could be shown. Sure, Cartoon Network had a good show running, but there was definitely certain themes and content that they couldn't produce because of the rating of the show and the nature of Cartoon Network in general. What's cool about the DC service is they've already shown that there's a couple things that they're willing to push the envelope on. Not only Black Lightning and his whole situation, but there's this cool scene, and I believe it's the 3rd episode, that just... I can't get into it because it would be a massive spoiler for that, but it's kind of terrifying when it happens, and it's very unexpected, and you don't expect that type of thing out of a cartoon. And even though ultimately they kind of punk out of it and don't go with that moving forward, it was cool to see them showing that they have the option to take that leap in that direction. What really seemed to hamper these first 3 episodes is that there was a lot of things that they needed to catch you up on. A lot like they did in Season 2, there was another time skip, admittedly a shorter one, but long enough to where the faces of the team have changed, the faces of the Justice League have changed, all of those dynamics and interactions have changed. And really there's a lot that they aren't going to cover in a lot of detail, it seems, because they have so many plot points moving forward, and that's where they kind of fell a little bit flat for me, is because instead of focusing on what they were doing with the end of Season 2 and kind of going forward that storyline, it seems as though that's going to be on the back burner to make up for about 5, 6 new storylines and characters that they're trying to develop and make important this season, and it honestly kind of worries me that they're trying to do too much too quickly. In the first 3 episodes, without getting into too many spoilers, there's a lot to do with Markovia and the royal family there, and they're trying to seem to make that kind of the central piece. That's all the puzzle pieces are going to be floating around for at least the first part of the season. And they kind of did an okay job of making them all seem relevant. The problem with Markovia is that there's not enough to make me care about it. After Season 2, there was an entire new team and all these new characters on it, and they didn't flesh out any of them. Tim Drake as Robin, Cassie Wonder Girl, all of these people who are big-time players, and they got pushed to the wayside because they didn't have enough time. There were too many people, there was too many mouths to feed, and you couldn't care about all of them. And now it looks like those people are going to be pushed to the side again because of the Markovian royal family, and characters like Black Lightning, who is awesome, but should really be in a Justice League thing or his own show, because he's worth more than that, and his storyline is honestly really ambitious. And as though the Markovians weren't boring enough, the main real comic book villain so far has been Count Vertigo, who I just think, outside of the Wally West having to run from one side of the country to the other with the Heart episode, Count Vertigo doesn't do it for me. He's okay in some other forms of media. I thought he was kind of interesting in like the CW Arrow show, but as far as Young Justice is concerned, every time Count Vertigo goes on, I'm kind of just waiting for the next scene. So it's not the best for my personal interest that they decided to start off with him as the main threat. Black Lightning has the incredible thing that cartoons don't really like to go over too much, is that he is a man with PTSD, and I'm not going to go into why, because that's really the central part of his character for this season, and although you learn it extremely early, I still don't want to go into spoilers for something that's going to be released on a weekly basis, and so people might not be as up to date on it because they don't know if they're going to get the streaming service or something like that. So I'll try and be good off of spoilers for the people who are really looking for a review to decide whether or not they're going to watch going forward. But cartoons have historically had a horrible time having people deal with PTSD and death and battleware and all the things that come from being in these stressful situations, and how it could really eat at you from the inside. And the fact that they're willing to take that jump with a character like Black Lightning, who, while gaining traction, is not at the forefront of everyone's mind when it comes to A-tier superheroes, is a huge idea that has wild implications for who he can be going forward in mainstream media. But enough about the silly downsides and things that might not flesh out later on and things that might be disappointing now that could get fixed later, because there are a lot of things in the first 3 episodes that I did like, and I think actually set up a lot of great things moving forward as well. First and foremost, it's got to be mentioned that Dick Grayson Nightwing, which is voiced by Jesse McCartney, I believe, is just as good as he's always been. One thing that needs to be known about me is Nightwing is very near and dear to my heart, as you might be able to tell. It's a pretty big part of how I read my comic books is through Dick Grayson. So it's good to see him being kind of a protagonist for the show. It's still an ensemble show, to be sure, but he seems to have most things revolving around him and what he's doing at the time, which is really great for someone like me who's been wanting him to have more of a spotlight in the mainstream. In recent years, he seems to be getting it. They're doing this cool new take with him where he's pretty much Agent 37 from the Grayson series. They keep on calling him Nightwing, but his tactical suit, although it's Nightwing-esque, easily you can tell has themes from Grayson. It's got like the lines that go over his chest and everything, that like the thin piping. And the way he's got, it's like a spiral hypnos kind of device for the face that the rest of the team uses, and other little subtle nods like that that they're pulling from the comic books, and they're incorporating in really cool and creative ways. He also has some great interactions with Barbara Gordon as Oracle, or at least I'm going to assume it's Barbara Gordon. I don't know who else Oracle would be in this universe. But it is kind of jarring at first because they don't go over why she's become Oracle. The implications are there that it's pretty much the Killing Joke storyline, but they don't go into it, and that's kind of something that you'd expect them to address a little bit more, even if there was a time skip. So it's a little bit odd that you think it would be a bigger deal for them to talk about, but it kind of just gets pushed to the wayside. Shockingly, the person that seems to have had the most development between last season and this season is Superboy. Connor has shown a lot of growth. He's seems to have a much better control of his emotions. He's not just being a blunt instrument that is raging his way through all of his problems anymore. When he's fighting, it's less and jumping at things, and it's more controlled. He's not necessarily using martial arts, but it seems like he has more control over his body. He's not throwing himself off balance. He's using other tools in his super kit to get through problems as opposed to just punching his way through them, and that is beautiful. If they keep on focusing on him like that, they're going to flesh him out into a really three-dimensional character, and it's pretty exciting when they initially had him as, the whole I don't want to be a weapon thing, which is fine, but it's a little bit stale. So it's cool to see that he not only doesn't just want to be a weapon, but he is becoming more. Artemis also seems to have come a long way since the last season. She's still as badass as ever. And unfortunately, as a grown man, I have to admit that I have a crush on a drawing, but, we'll just skip over that part. One of the things that the time skip did with her that seems really cool is that they've shown that she is not necessarily over Wally, but she knows how to live her life without him. Of course, there's part of me that wants to see her grieve and struggle over dealing with it, and sure, there's still time for them to do that, but it's also cool that with the time skip, they were able to show the strength and the fact that not only is she able to function and live her life without him, but she still has him as a part of her life, and that he is still near and dear to her heart even though he's gone. M'gann seems to have this self-confidence boost thing going on where she's more comfortable in her own skin that I'm not really going to get into for spoiler reasons, and also just because I just don't care about M'gann. I loved her in the first season. In the second season, she lost me, and until she earns it back this season potentially, I'm not going to talk about her much. Another thing that's cool but really needs to be developed into its own show because it doesn't make sense here is Batman and his side story with the Justice League. I'm not going to go into spoilers, but it's not a Young Justice story. That is a Justice League story, and it's so cool that they want to tackle it, and I want to see more things like this from DC. But this is the opportunity for them to have a Justice League show to accompany Young Justice in the same universe, or if they want to do like a Batman Incorporated thing, or it's, you know, because they're already doing the Outsiders with Nightwing, so if they want to do their side teams like that, but they kind of need to pick a side, and it needs to be given more time or no time at all, much like Black Lightning. It's kind of hard to have a discussion about the first 3 episodes of the show when it's going to be going for so many more episodes, because not everybody's been established yet. You know, like Calder's got something going on that might be cool, but he hasn't done anything with it yet, so he's not worth talking about. Red Arrow, or Roy, or whatever you want to call him, he also was barely in it. Nothing really from Cheshire or other characters that you would come to expect at this point. So until they add more, it's kind of just saying, like, yeah, you set the groundwork, but they didn't really add a cliffhanger or anything huge to keep my interest for coming back in the next week. I'm going to because I love Young Justice and I have faith in them. I want to see where the show's going. But if I was somebody that was going to be looking into Young Justice for the first time and I started with season 3, I'm pretty sure I would have felt super alienated. It was not welcoming to new viewers, and it ended on kind of a whimper. Now, if someone were to go from watching the first 2 seasons of Young Justice to watching this one, I feel like it'd be a bit of a different story. There's a couple things that they flesh out, and it's cool to see the growth in a lot of the characters you like, and you're willing to let the plot being slow go to the side because you've seen the character growth and you're willing to be patient and let the setting and the events kind of play out over a period of time. Young Justice Season 3 and Titans were supposed to be the shows that the entire DC Universe streaming service hinged on. And Young Justice got ripped out of the gate before it even came out, so that could never realize its full potential, even if it's a okay show. And Young Justice Season 3 is starting off so slow that I'm feeling like they're going to lose a decent amount of viewership that doesn't want to pay for the subscription service for 2 full months. So they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot. And while it's interesting to see where things are going to go, and it's probably going to be worth the money in the end, I don't know if it's the best business strategy. For anybody that's super excited about Young Justice and is a diehard fan of the show and is just so excited to have it back, I'd say go ahead. You know, sign up for the service, watch the episodes, have a good time. You're going to enjoy yourself, at least to some extent. And you're probably going to stay long after it's over to watch it a second time. But for people that are kind of on the fence about getting the streaming service, if they're on the fence about even watching Young Justice, if the first 2 seasons are worth it for you to get the streaming service, then sure, go ahead and grab it. You know, they're a great show, and if you think like, oh, season 3, I saw the ads for it, it looked kind of cool, watch the first 2 seasons, see how you like it. But if you don't know whether or not you like Young Justice, or if Young Justice was just okay for you, I don't think these are the episodes that are going to win you over. So in the meantime, I would honestly say to hold off for a couple more episodes to come out. So just sit tight, because next week they're going to come out with more episodes and I'm going to talk about them into this empty void. And if somebody wants to see my opinion on it, then sure, I'd love to tell you. I'd love to tell you whether or not you should get the service or not. Until then, I'm going to have to give it a meh out of 10. It was an okay time.